Who's hot, who's not, and whatever happened to Trevor Zegras? Carlo, let's start out with who's hot. It's your former teammate, Anthony Stolarz, who is putting up incredible numbers for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Are you a believer that this could be a long-term thing?
Absolutely, I'm a believer. I actually could believe this could be one of the best seasons we see out of Anthony Stolarz. And look, a huge credit to Anthony Stolarz, who started in Philadelphia. When I was there with him as a young rookie, I saw potential because immediately when I look at a goaltender, the one thing that really stands out to me is how big and how much of the net he covers. And that was always one thing that impressed me with Stolarz. And you just wondered if he could use his size and actually round out the rest of the game. Well, let's just look at his travels. He goes from Philadelphia to Edmonton to Anaheim. And then last year he backs up the Vezina Trophy winner and Sergei Bobrovsky as they win the Stanley Cup. So you got to think throughout his travels, he's 30 years old right now. He's learned a lot through his experiences. And as a backup goaltender coming through the ranks of the NHL, sometimes you don't always get the easy games. You always got to get the second half of back-to-backs. Where he really thrived was on those second half of the back-to-backs where he had a 6-1-1 record with the Florida Panthers last year. And so this opportunity for the Maple Leafs this year was just too good for him to pass up because it was finally his chance to show that he deserved to be a number one goaltender. And man, has he showed it. Through 9 games, 5-2-2, a 2.12 goals against average, and a .928 save percentage. More impressively is through the 5-on-5 play in those 9 games, he boasts a .958 save percentage, and he has stopped 182 of 190 shots he's faced. AK, those numbers that we're talking about with Anthony Stolarz put him in the top 3 in the league in goalie statistics, which right now, if we were to do the Vezina Trophy vote, he'd definitely be up there. Those are Vezina Trophy numbers right now for Anthony Stolarz. He's been everything and more that this Maple Leafs team has needed. And to see the way he plays in the net, with all the calm, the poise, the size, and the positioning, there's no panic in his game. And so far, when he's needed to be asked to make the big save, he's made it and more. He's been absolutely unbelievable and a great story right now for the Maple Leafs and the NHL.
I'm not sure who Anthony Stolarz' agent is, but if you're looking for a maybe side hustle here at TSN, you certainly could be qualified for that role. Total agreement with you. There's no denying the fact that Stolarz has been one of, if not the best, free agent acquisitions this past offseason. Let's talk about Cale Makar, another guy who's hot. Second in the league in scoring. Had a couple more assists last night for Colorado. What a year he's had. He's minus 150 to win the Norris. He's 80 to 1 to win the Art Ross, something that hasn't been done by a defenseman since Bobby Orr back in the 70s. Worth a sprinkle, perhaps?
Well, let me read you the resume of Cale Makar. Okay, he won the Hobey Baker. He won the Calder Trophy. He won the Conn Smythe. He's won a Norris Trophy, and he's won a Stanley Cup. So why wouldn't we put it past him to maybe try to win the Art Ross? I mean, this is what motivates players to accomplish and win stuff that they haven't won before. And it's incredible the start that he's gotten off to. 23 points in just 13 games. And in Colorado, they've gone through so much adversity with guys in and out of their lineup. He's had to have the start that he's had so far with McKinnon leading the way in the NHL because they've had to outscore their problems. The Colorado Avalanche, for the season that they've had so far, 6-7 through 13 games, they lead the league in goals against. So you got to think with the amount of points that they're putting up and the goals that they're scoring, it's because they got guys like Makar, they got guys like McKinnon and Rantanen helping lead the way. And Makar, look, he had his career high 90 points last season. There's no reason right now we can't say if he plays a full season, he can't eclipse the century point. And if he does, look, there's a lot of elite forwards in the league that have more opportunity to record more than just 100 points. It's hard for a defenseman to actually win the Art Ross. But at the pace he's going right now, I wouldn't put it past him.
Definitely not. And Nathan McKinnon right there with him, his teammates. Those two working in conjunction in many respects on that Colorado Avalanche power play. It'll be a battle between those two for the top point producer for the Colorado Avalanche. All right, from who's hot to who's not, and some of the players the Edmonton Oilers brought in over the offseason, whether it was trades or signings, re-signings, guys like Skinner and Arvidsson, Podkolzin, Adam Henrique, not exactly producing offensively to this point. Should the Oilers and their fans be concerned about this?
Well, they definitely have to be concerned about the production from these two guys, and it's early on. Arvidsson, 1 goal through 13 games. Skinner, 3 goals through 13 games. I would imagine they would expect more production from those guys, especially with the talent that they're playing with. But this is more of a team issue that Edmonton is facing. Their special teams aren't very good. One of the worst in the league, both power play and penalty kill. They haven't been getting great goaltending from either Skinner or Pickard. And McDavid has missed a little bit of time right now. Draisaitl's starting to pick up his game. You know, Hyman starting to get a couple goals, even though he started off slow. I think this is just a hangover part with Edmonton. Still, you know, reeling through the Game 7 defeat, having a short offseason, thinking to themselves the grind to get back to Game 7 or grind to get back to the semifinals, and it just hasn't clicked for them yet. If we learned our lesson from the Edmonton Oilers, all we got to do is go back to last season, where at one point in the season, through 2 months, they were last in the league, turned things around, marched their way to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. Yes, they're going to need these two guys to pick up their game, but so far the early returns have not been good with the new additions for Edmonton.
Another team that is not hot is the Montreal Canadiens, coming off a loss to the Calgary Flames. This is a team that is arguably the worst team defensively in the NHL, not producing much offensively beyond some of their top players. Marty St. Louis was the belle of the ball in Montreal just a year ago. Has some of the shine worn off on St. Louis?
No, I don't think so. Look, from a guy that does a lot of Habs games, Marty St. Louis can only do so much with what he has. And I think the problem in Montreal is they expected to take another step forward this year, and instead, they've taken a step back. You talked about it, AK. Marty St. Louis wanted to address this team's defense and be better defensively, but they are one of the worst teams in the league defensively this year. 53 goals against this year through 13 games. That's an average of 4+ goals a game. That's not going to win you many hockey games. They got a great start with Montembeault in net. Even when Primo comes in, he gives them a chance to win. But defensively, they're just not very good. And you look at the talent on this team. I think that this is what the Montreal Canadiens lack. They have a talent issue because outside of the top line with Caulfield, Suzuki, and Slafkovsky, that you know you can count on getting consistent production from, they aren't getting consistent production from anyone else in the roster in their bottom 9. Kirby Dach, everyone's waiting for him to break out. They're even moving him around to try to get him to play with their top players. Alex Newhook, who's pegged as their second-line center aceman, he's struggling to produce offensively. The exciting thing about Montreal, I know everybody wants this thing to go quicker than it is, but they just don't have the talent up front. You look at their pipeline, though. Demidov's on his way. Michael Haig's on his way. Joshua Waugh's a guy that's lighting up the American Leagues. Logan Mayhew's coming on defense again to add to already good group of young defensemen. This is still a work in progress, but they need to upgrade their forward group because right now, outside of their top guys, it's hard to find consistent production from anybody else in their roster.
Well, this brings us to a natural transition to the whatever happened to part of this segment. And today we're talking about Trevor Zegras, who at one point in time was one of the rising stars in the NHL. He's on the cover of the video games. Everybody's talking about the Michigans, the incredible passes. He's essentially been a ghost for the last 2 seasons between injuries and a lack of production. Does he need a new place to play, a change of scenery, or is this what Trevor Zegras is now?
Well, I think this is what Trevor Zegras is because he's learned what life in the NHL is like. And the life in the NHL is a hard one because when you make an impact the way he did early on in his career, you got to find new ways every year to change yourself as a player and to make yourself, survive in the league because the book's out on him, right? Everybody knows he's got the flash. Everybody knows he likes to highlight real stuff. Players are guarding against that. And when I look at Zegras, I kind of look at the Anaheim Ducks as an organization and I say to myself, what young player has really succeeded in Anaheim? You're talking about Mason McTavish, who's played in his 3rd season right now, is a high pick, hasn't really found his stride. Leo Carlsson in his 2nd season. Yeah, we see some flashes here and there, but we haven't really seen the growth that we want to see as quick as we want to see it. Cutter Gauthier, this guy was supposed to be the next big thing. Demands his way out of Philadelphia to a better opportunity in Anaheim. He's struggling in his 1st season. So for Trevor Zegras in his 5th season, I think what he's having a hard time doing is adapting to life in the NHL because you really question, somebody has to remind him that the NHL isn't always an all-star competition where you have those, highlight reel goals and those highlight reel plays on a night-to-night basis. He's got to learn to play the hard way to play the game, which is, be more responsible defensively, understand to get to the dirty areas, because it's not always going to be flashy the way he wants it to be. And I think that's why he's struggling the way that he is, and that's what Anaheim sees him right now. He's playing on their third line. He's not even a top six forward for this team. So until he figures out his own identity and what he wants to be and how he needs to make this transition to stay as a as a really above average or maybe an elite NHL player, the adjustments got to be made by him. There's got to be an investment in his own game to make himself better as an overall NHL hockey player, because the skill is there, but it's about rounding out the rest of his game.
Well, Carlo, when it comes to who's hot, you, my friend, are hot. Fantastic performance on the first edition of Who's Hot, Who's Not, and Whatever Happened To.